In this video, we're going to study article number 2 in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy's Modern Arithmetic 3 course. Article number 2. In our last lesson, we studied article 1, and there we learned some important definitions. We learned that a unit is anything that can be called one or a single thing of any kind. Then we learned that numbers consist of one or more units. We learned that numbers can be expressed by words or by characters. We learned that there are two important ways that numbers can be expressed by characters, two systems of notation, the Arabic system of notation and the Roman system of notation, Arabic and Roman. And I said that in our future lessons, we're going to study how to express numbers using the Arabic notation and later the Roman notation. In article number 2, we begin our study of Arabic notation. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. You can see that there are 4 points to be studied in this article, and while they're pretty simple and you may be familiar with these things, we want to study them carefully because being familiar with them or knowing about them a little bit is not good enough. We have to know them exactly because in later lessons we're going to learn rules for solving problems, and we have to know these things exactly or it's going to cause trouble when we try to solve problems, especially when those problems get more difficult. Okay, so just because you may already know these things, pay attention and learn them more carefully. So, point number 1 in Article 2. To express numbers, the Arabic notation employs 10 characters. To express numbers, the Arabic notation employs, that means uses, 10 characters. Now that's very important because you can just think of how many numbers there are, thousands and thousands and millions and billions of numbers. But we can express any number, no matter how great it is, we can express any number using just 10 characters or symbols in Arabic notation. That's why Arabic notation is so important. If we learn just 10 characters, we can express any number, no matter how great it is. That's what's good about Arabic notation, okay? To express numbers, any number, Arabic notation employs just 10 characters, and these are called figures. One more time. To express numbers, Arabic notation employs 10 characters, and these characters are called figures. So 10 figures allow us to express any number in Arabic notation. Here on the board written are the 10 characters or figures of Arabic notation. And you'll see these are just the numbers that we see all the time. Well, we see these numbers all the time, but these numbers came to us from ancient peoples who invented them. It says here in Rule 2, Arabic notation was brought into Europe by the Arabians. Now, the Europeans, the people of Europe, settled America, and our country was started and designed by Europeans. But those Europeans, they learned these numbers from other people who are called Arabians. If you don't know who Arabians are, you're going to have to study world chronology because we can't teach history here in arithmetic class. But the Europeans learned these figures from the Arabians, and that's why it's called Arabic notation, but the Arabians learned them from India. And when we say the Indian people, we're talking about ancient India, not Native American Indians, but ancient Indians. So Arabic notation was brought into Europe by the Arabians. That's why it's called Arabic notation. And they learned it from the Indians. It originally came from India. These 10 figures, all right? And like I said, you've probably seen these figures every day, but now you know that they've come from ancient peoples who created them, who passed them on through the Arabians into Europe and then to America, where we see them today. The Arabic notation employs 10 characters called figures, and these are the 10 figures. Now, we learned that numbers can be expressed by words or by characters. So we need to make sure that we know the character and the word to express each number. All right? This figure, the first figure, expresses the number 1. And we can write the number 1 with this figure in Arabic notation or with this word in English. If we want to write in Latin or Greek or French or Spanish, we would have to use a different word for a different language. But this figure can be used in any language. So it doesn't matter if you speak Spanish or French or English or Italian, German, any language. This figure, using Arabic notation, expresses the number 1. Can you see how helpful that is? Okay? You would have to learn a different word for every number in every different language to talk to different people. But with Arabic notation, we can all express the number 1 with this figure. Again, Arabic notation is very, very helpful, which is why we use it today. The next figure is the number 2. This figure in Arabic notation is used to symbolize the number 2. In English, we can write the word 2, but you would have to learn a different word in every different language. But every different language uses Arabic notation and knows that this figure is a symbol of the number 2. This is the figure for the number 3. This is the figure for the number 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. Okay? So these are the 9 basic figures, but there's one more. And it's not 10. Even though there are 10 figures, the 10th figure is not 10, but 0. This figure in Arabic notation is a symbol that expresses 0 or no units. Okay? So these 10 figures allow us to express any number in any language. And that's what's so important and useful about Arabic notation. All right? 10 figures can express any number in any language. We learned already that this system of writing numbers, the Arabic notation, was brought into Europe by the Arabians, and we learned that they learned it from the people of India. It's ancient, an ancient system of notation. In Rule 3 here, we learn that in modern times, Arabic notation, some people don't like to call it Arabic notation because, well, first of all, the Arabians didn't invent it, but they like to give it more of a scientific name, a more mathematical name. Arabic notation is also called the decimal system. The decimal system. So Arabic notation and the decimal system are the same thing. Arabic notation and the decimal system are the same thing. The decimal system, if you ever hear that, decimals, it's just Arabic notation. Okay, these two terms mean the same thing. This is a more mathematical or scientific name for Arabic notation. Okay, Arabic notation is also called the decimal system. And since I'm a Latin teacher, let me just tell you what this word decimal means. In Latin, I'll write it right in here. In Latin, the word decem or decem means 10. Okay? Decem means 10. The month December actually means the 10th month, because in the ancient Roman calendar, December was the 10th month of the year. Decem means 10. The decimal system is the system of notation that uses 10 figures. Okay, so it's called the decimal system. I hope that helps clarify what that name means. The decimal system, a system that uses 10 or decem figures. Right? And then lastly, we have to ask the question, how? How can we express any number using just 10 figures? How can we express any number using just 10 figures? And the answer is the Arabic notation, the Arabic system or the decimal system uses numbers in different places to express all different numbers. We're going to learn about that in coming lessons. But what you need to understand is stated here in the fourth rule. The order, notice I've underlined order. The order of a figure is its place in a number. The order of a figure is its place in a number. And in our next lesson, we're going to start to learn what that means. But in this lesson, we simply want to introduce this idea that the order of a figure is its place in a number. And I'll just give you one simple example to get us started. I'll write it up here. This year, when I'm making this video, is the year 2020. 2020. And you can see here we write the number 2020 in Arabic notation. You can see that there are 4 different numbers. There are 4 different places. Here's the first place, the second place, the third place, and the fourth place. Each of these places is called an order. Each of these places in a number in Arabic notation is called an order. First order, second order, third order, fourth order. We write the number 2020. 2020, but look, we only use the symbol for 2 and the symbol here for 0. And that's it. 2, 0, 2, 0. Just 2 different figures allows us to write the number 2020. And the reason why we can do that is because these numbers are put, or these figures are put in different orders or places. And in our next lesson, we're going to learn what these different places mean. But for now, in Article 2, we simply want to learn the order of a figure in Arabic notation is the place of that number in the number, the place of that figure, I should say. I'll say that again. The order of a figure is its place in a number. So here, This number 2, the order of this figure is, it's the second place, or the second order. This number 2 is in the 1, 2, 3, fourth place, or fourth order. This figure 0 is in 1, 2, third place, or third order. And this figure 0 is in the first place, or the first order. The order of a figure is its place in a number. So starting in our next lesson, we're going to begin to learn how we can express any number using just these 10 figures in Arabic notation. All right? Now we can quickly review this and wrap up article number 2. To express numbers, the Arabic notation employs 10 characters, and we explained why that's important, because we only need to know 10 different figures or 10 different symbols to write any number. And these 10 characters are called figures. We saw here each of the 10 figures that are used in Arabic notation. We learned where Arabic notation came from, why it's called Arabic notation. Arabic notation was brought into Europe by the Arabians, or the people of Arabia. It originally came from India. That's where this system of characters comes from. Then we learned Arabic notation is also called the decimal system, and I explained why some people like to call it the decimal system instead of Arabic notation. And we learned that the word decimal comes from the Latin word decem, which means 10. It's a system of 10 figures. And then lastly, to get us ready for the next lesson, we learned the order of a figure is its place in a number. And I showed you the number 2020, and we looked at the different places that the numbers or the figures are in this number. Okay? That's all that's contained in Article 2 in Modern Arithmetic 3. I hope that's a helpful look at Article 2. Take some time to review this, study it carefully, because remember, even though you may know most of this, you may know these numbers already, I want you to learn all of these details. And I want you to learn them carefully and exactly. I want you to study this lesson for mastery, because we're going to use this lesson to build more and more knowledge as we go on in arithmetic. And if you don't have this lesson mastered, you're going to run into trouble in a later lesson, because we're going to assume that you know everything that's in each lesson when we start the next lesson. So study this lesson carefully. That's all for Article 2. In our next lesson, we'll continue with Article 3, and then Article 4, and all the way through the rest of our book in Modern Arithmetic 3. I hope that's a helpful introduction. God bless your studies.